welcome to Johnathanblade, the Elder Blerd. This is the second episode with the new title. I'm pretty happy with it. I didn't promote the first episode, so almost nobody's listened to it, so I may promote both of them at the same time. But today we're talking about Sinners. I mean, with a title like The Elder Blerd, how could we not talk about Sinners? It was bound to happen eventually. And I have unfortunately listened to every piece of media about Sinners after the fact. But I still want to put my 2 cents in, because there are some things that have not been covered that I feel should have been covered in that conversation. Sinners is incredible, and I was just listening to Not a Movie Podcast talk about how Sinners is the kind of movie that makes you feel like you love the movies. That's the feeling it generates. I love movies. And that is what Sinners did for me. I love movies, and that hasn't happened a lot in the theater in the last few years. I can think of maybe 2 pictures off the top of my head. One is Oppenheimer. I love movies. The other is probably Godzilla -1. I love movies in the theater. There's a certain thing that I'm looking for when I go to see movies in the theater, and probably none of it is what a cinephile's looking for going to see the movies, but it is what I'm looking for. I'm looking to have an experience, and that experience is visceral, and most of it is aesthetic. That's just me. I'm all surface. And so there are emotional things that affect me too, but those are all surface as well. So I do appreciate subtext, but that subtext has to complement a heaping helping of wow, boom pow. And whether that boom pow is emotional, if it's tension, whatever it is, it has to have something big to justify being on the big screen rather than me falling asleep to it at home watching Netflix or some such. And so I have seen a lot of the big movies in the theater over the last few years, and most of those big movies, even if I thought they were pretty good, I would basically fall asleep at some point in those movies. Even something as good as Nosferatu, which I thought was an excellent movie, but yeah, I fell asleep in Nosferatu. Not in Sinners, and I was tired. I went to the theater tired to see Sinners. I went late because I wanted to get in on the first weekend, because I knew the conversation would be big. And I wanted to be part of this big conversation, so I went to see Sinners on the first weekend late. I was fully at attention the entire time. It grabbed me, the build of tension, the sharing of the nuance of living in the South and the colors. Man, the presentation of black folks on screen and the way that they existed on screen. I don't have enough good things that I can say about my Sinners experience and how I feel about Sinners, but I feel like that conversation is well worn, so I kind of want to talk about it in the framing of black movies and pop culture. Not just black movies, and not just movies with black people in them, but like black movies in pop culture. Because people feel like, oh, the minorities are everywhere, they're taking over everything and replacing good white roles with you gotta be woke and put a in there. That's really not the case. Having somebody be a token background player, which was something that came on in the 90s, and that's something that certain folks accept today, is that the screen can be a melting pot if you don't center a person who is not white. If you don't center somebody who's not white, it's okay for them to be part of the thing. Unless they're trans, and that's a whole nother conversation. But people just don't like to have others centered. They don't mind others existing because others are actually part of the modern conversation. And in this case, the otherness is black or Asian, women. They don't mind them being part of the conversation because the generation that is dominant now was raised on 80s and 90s pop culture. Coming out of affirmative action, those people, our people, got to exist, but they weren't centered. And that was fine. So the people that were raised on that media are now seeing media where people are centered and they can't wrap their minds around it. They want other people to take on the human experience as stop complaining. It's just a piece of media for people. Why can't you appreciate that? While they can't see themselves in media that does not center them. That's obnoxious as hell. But so there have not been that many pieces of media that center around others that have dominated pop culture. Like in the recent time, you have Get Out. Get Out is actually, even though it is a black-themed movie, it's not fully a black movie. It doesn't center around a black cast. The lead is black, the themes are black, but the cast is white. which I think is one of the reasons it's so acceptable and it did so well is because of that. Or something like Black Panther. That did well because of its pop cultural moment, but something like The Woman King, which is also great, did not do that well because it's not part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Pop cultural moment that it would have had was taken by Black Panther years earlier, and it also centers around women, so there's another point in there that people are like, I don't want to see that. I know black men who don't want to see things that are centered around women, so that is unfortunate and a shame, but those are like spare examples. And then before that, like going back farther, it's like far and few in between. Moonlight had its pop cultural moment, but only in cinematic spaces. People who love cinema loved Moonlight. Moonlight is actually one of my favorite movies ever because people think it's about the queer experience, and my interpretation is not that it's about the queer experience. I know the creator is queer, and it's probably drawn from his own experience. Moonlight is about social isolation and how desperate you can be because humans are social animals, and you need to interact with humans on a level of physical intimacy, but empathy. Just somebody touch me, somebody feel me as a human being. Man, I love that movie. But yeah, that's not even a pop cultural thing. That just had its moment. Or something like Precious. It became huge in the pop cultural conversation, but it also presents black folks in a certain light that I do not like for the larger conversation. And then other movies that make it into the larger conversation about black people are about black people surviving oppression, but it centers their experience in these white spaces. So it's not about their black experience in their own world, it's about their black experience in white spaces. So somebody in that movie is inevitably going to be the white savior, even if the movie's not centered around the white savior experience. So you have to go to the movies of like Ryan Coogler or Jordan Peele, kind of. And I think that Jordan Peele's an amazing creator, but his core experience is not, I'm black, y'all, levels of integration into the culture. So his presentation of the experience is different than Ryan Coogler's presentation of the experience. They're both valid, and they're both kind of amazing, but you get something like Django Unchained, not a black creator, Quentin Tarantino. Django Unchained will go down as one of the quintessential black movies, because Quentin Tarantino has some understanding of a part of that experience, and he just makes a damn good movie, and he chose to center that movie around black people. But once again, the Oppression Olympics in that movie, actually, Django Unchained shares a bit of the catharsis of something like Sinners, where you get to see the fantasy of the enemy getting their comeuppance. I do appreciate that. Before that, you have to go back as far as maybe something like Eddie Murphy's comedies back in the late 80s, early 90s, something like, well, I guess Spike Lee's movies as well. Do the Right Thing is the quintessential black experience, and because it takes place in a black neighborhood, like a fantasy version of Brooklyn, you don't have to center a whole lot of what that experience is on the oppression side until later in the movie. That it does include that. It's about that, but it's mostly about the people living this neighborhood inside of this experience that is multicultural in some aspects, but it's about a black neighborhood. But before that, yeah, Eddie Murphy's comedies like Boomerang is a fantasy black experience. It's a real black experience, but as presented in Eddie Murphy's movie, it's kind of a fantasy because he lives in an all-black professional world, which does exist in like Atlanta, but probably did not exist in New York at the time. I think Boomerang is kind of incredible. Coming to America is a quintessential black movie about the black experience. And so what I'm talking about are movies that have investment. They have a budget. They're lush. They're cinematic. There's something that you would want to see on the big screen because they have production quality. You don't see that as often as you would like. There's the Tyler Perry end of the experience, which is pretty gross to me, and I don't like that people like that. I like that it exists, and I know that Tyler Perry does a lot to promote black creativity, to give it an outlet, but mostly it's his creativity, and I don't like what he does. I don't think it's good for black folks to have this Sesame Street level of morality play for every piece of media that's created. I think it stifles us. But it's more than nothing, which is something that I have to respect when talking about this experience. And then you have something like Sinners. Ryan Coogler made his bones in the industry off of not a whole lot of movies. He did Fruitvale Station, he did Creed and Creed 3, he did the Black Panther movies, and these are all about the culture, centering the actors. And, well, I guess Creed 1 is not really fully about black culture, but it is a lot about black culture. Centering Adonis, Creed and his family and his experience, but it's kind of an offshoot of a Rocky movie first. I think it's a successful offshoot of a Rocky movie. You get something like Creed 2, which was not directed by him or even written by him, and you get something different. Creed 2 is a Rocky movie and not really a black movie. Creed 3 is definitely a black movie. But Ryan Coogler strides the culture like a giant because of the Creeds and the Black Panthers. He is a global name. He has movies that have made $1 billion, which I don't know that any other black director has gotten under their belt before. But then you get to something like Sinners. Like he said, hey, I'm going to take all this credit, all of this investment in the politics of Hollywood that I have gotten and make something that is unapologetically black in the most beautiful way. It's a lush, sumptuous movie and sensuous. And he does things in that movie that you will not see at that level of production. He shows his camera loves black people in a way that you don't often get to see in movies. The actress who plays Pauline, Jamie Lawson, when the camera takes her beauty in, you have never seen a white director shoot a black woman like that. Even something as respectful as The Color Purple has never loved a black woman on camera, like a dark-skinned black woman who is extraordinarily beautiful and taken in her form. She walks away and the whole theater goes, "Oh, Lord." That is Mississippi hot. Also, and we'll get to Michael B. Jordan, but also the way that the camera loves Wunmi Mosaku as Annie. And I want to be sensitive about this, but I also want to lay it bare. You have never seen, much less a black woman, but you've never seen a big lady be the romantic lead in a serious movie before. It's not played for laughs. And she's a beautiful woman, but she's a big lady, and you do not see that in big-budget Hollywood movies, and Ryan Coogler did that. And he made it sexy. And, man, I just have to hats off this man. Like, beyond the beautiful aesthetic, beyond the perfect build, some people think the beginning of the movie is a slow burn, like too slow, but I was in it. Like, I may have felt that way also, but I was in it the whole time. The movie had me the entire time. As Delroy Lindo is swallowing all of the presence on screen, as Miles Catton was doing the same, this little man with this big man's voice, God damn, he was impressive. And this is his first movie, evidently. He played the hell out of that role, and it was actually his movie. It's Michael B. Jordan's movie, but it centers around the character of Sammy, played by this new actor, Miles Catton, and he knocked it out of the box. Man, I don't want to spoil too much. I guess it doesn't matter. This movie's so heavy in the conversation, but the plot of Sinners is about how this bluesman, this young bluesman, the cousin of Michael B. Jordan's characters, is a blues musician. He wants to be a blues musician. He's young. He doesn't have the experience yet, but he has mastered the blues guitar, and he can sing his face off, and he has the ability of a musical storyteller, basically. The movie starts talking about the oral tradition, power of musical storytelling, and how that power is desired at such a level that it can bring out spirits who want that power for themselves. And that is functionally the plot of the movie. Michael B. Jordan as two brothers, Stack and Smokestack, buy a... I can't tell if it's a slaughterhouse or a sawmill. I think they call it a sawmill, but some stuff has happened there. Maybe the Klan murdered people because they buy it from what is functionally a Klan member who says, the Klan doesn't exist anymore, boys. But they buy this old sawmill from the Klan to make a nightclub. Smoke and Stack have had a life of experiences like comic book adventures. They fought in World War I, maybe? Like, I can't tell what their age is, but they probably fought in World War I, probably for a resistance force or as mercenaries, because I don't think that black soldiers were allowed to fight in World War I. On the American side, they've worked for gangsters. They worked for Al Capone up in Chicago. They stole from both sides, from the Irish mob and the Italian mob, and they took their ill-gotten goods, probably from a casino that had opened up there, and took them down to Mississippi to use them to open a nightclub for their community. And so that is how the movie starts. Smoke and Stack roll into the Mississippi Delta in the town that they're from, gather the crew so that they can open this nightclub, and they bring on a collection of people, including their Chinese friends, and they are willing to put it in for profit, because everybody in this movie is shrewd, and they know that even for your buddies, it's tit for tat. And in fact, that's one of the conversations had in the movie. You get what you're worth, bargain for what you're worth. There's a slow build of them putting together this nightclub as kind of small-time gangsters. A beautiful presentation of what that community is like inside that nightclub, inspired by the famous, I forget what the painting's called, but inspired by the famous painting from the closing of Good Times, the juke joint painting. I think it's called The Sugar Shack. That's what inspired that nightclub scene, and it is beautiful. And then you have the infamous tracking shot that is the build-up to the vampires finding out or hearing the abilities of Preacher Boy Sammy to sang his face off. And so there's a long shot. I don't know how long that shot is, maybe 10 minutes of him singing for the first time for this crowd as they're having a ball, and it escalates, and then you see the ability of the music to transcend space and time, and so you see people of different musical eras as part of that performance. So just in the club, there are people from different cultures in different times, from black culture at different times. There's 80s hip-hop folks, both in the audience and playing music. There's a funk guitar player, I think is what the first alternate musician that opens that tracking shot. Native Americans, Africans, there are Chinese dancers because the Chinese folks are there. People love that scene, and they think that scene is the centerpiece of the movie, and I guess it's supposed to be. Folks love it. I didn't love the tracking shot temporally. In its place in the movie, I was like, this is too much, and it's a departure from kind of entertainment piece that this movie is. But for me, it comes together at the end. Spoilers. Big spoiler, but the movie ends, and the epilogue of the movie takes place in the credits. And the epilogue's like 10 minutes inside the credits. Sammy recalls that night. He's an old man who has established a career in jazz music. The movie opens with him after having experienced this night of vampires and seen horrible, horrible things, walking into his father's church, holding the guitar that his father told him not to take because the devil would find him if he played at the juke joint or whatever. He's holding the neck of the guitar that is broken for dear life and walks into his father's church, and his father's like, let go of the guitar, son. Just let go of it. At the end of the movie, he does not let go of the guitar. He leaves town with just the neck of the guitar because of the experience that he had that night. Because before the vampires attacked, this man had the greatest night of his life. He had never had an experience like that before in his young life, and probably never had one like that again. And that was the through line. Like, the ability to create at that level drove him past all sense of religious propriety, all sense of self-preservation. He wanted to have that experience again, and so by the end of the movie, you see folks who survived through the ages as vampires who are very important to the movie. I won't call them out. They encounter him, and they're reminiscing about that evening. Beyond the hell, it was a glorious time for everybody involved, and to me, that is one of the biggest themes of the movie. Beyond the permanent, like the bigger social aspect of the permanence and power of musical storytelling, it's that. The impulse to create, the creation genesis is stronger than almost anything. I mean, it's what drives me to make this podcast. It's something to create because I spent years as a creative, and so this is my current creative outlet. So I understood that 100%. I don't understand why it took place in the credits. That doesn't make sense to me. But I'm jumping around here. I still have not mentioned Michael B. Jordan. I acknowledge Michael B. Jordan as a good actor. I think he's a good actor. Before now, I have not really liked the characters that Michael B. Jordan plays. He plays these angry, spoiled man-children. And at this point in his life, he's too mature to only play angry, spoiled man-children who get by on their pretty smile. Because as an actor, he gets by on, like, tight body, great smile, dimples. That's his shtick. You get some of that here as part of one or kind of both of his characters, but he's so much more in the fact that he's playing two distinct characters that he pulls off pretty well. I'm impressed, Michael B. Jordan. Kudos to you. Other big props to Haley Steinfeld, who is doing something in this movie that is almost offensive to me because she's pulling it off very well. It almost feels like a parody of black people because I know that she's white. Like she's like 1/8 black or something in real life. What do they call that in the offensive old term? The octoroon. In the modern time, she's she's not black because culturally she's not black, and also you kind of get judged by your phenotype, and phenotypically she's just an interesting looking white person, even though she's got Filipino and black in her background and such. But she's pulling off a very sexy, very, I want to say self-assured. She is very confident in herself and in how aggressive she is going for what she wants. Like, she's very aggressive. She walks through life with some entitlement, which kind of makes sense given the positioning of her character in the movie, because culturally she straddles whiteness because she can access white spaces as somebody who passes, and blackness because she was raised in the black community, which is why they consider her family. But she loves Smoke with all her heart because he showed her what for in her nether regions, and she never let go of that. But her mother raised Smoke and Stack after the experiences that they had in their youth, which is part of the story as well. I don't want to give up the whole movie, and I actually don't want to talk about the entire plot of the movie. I mostly just want to talk about its placement and the culture. Where this movie lives in the conversation has blown me away, and Ryan Coogler's ability to create something that does live in the conversation like that, because he did it with Black Panther. But Black Panther was an event. It was a pre-existing property. It was a black superhero on the big screen in an international way in which nothing but maybe Blade had done before 20 years prior. But Blade was not nearly the kind of hit that Black Panther was. I think Blade made 120 million or 150 million. Black Panther made 1.3 billion, so its reach is different. Culturally, I feel like they have the same kind of reach. Also, Blade's not a black movie. It stars a black character, which is progressive in its own right 20 years ago, but it's not a black movie specifically. Black Panther is a black movie specifically. The presentation of black utopian technocracy on the big screen, where you've never seen anything like that before on the big screen, you've almost never seen anything like that before, period, was a revelation for me. Them coming into Wakanda, and I've talked about this before, but that is the thing for Black Panther. Whether it's a great movie or not, it's a good movie, regardless of how you look at it. And the first part of that movie, where you see Wakanda and experience these actors who are feeling pride on screen, that's what Ryan Coogler's bringing, and that is impressive. But now he's doing it in his own original IP, so it's not connected to anything, but it's living in the conversation like it is. Because it's an incredible movie, because it is from somebody who has pop cultural cachet, Sinners is living in the space like a Jordan Peele movie, but once again, Jordan Peele movies have black people, and they deal with themes that are sometimes directly, sometimes tangentially related to blackness. It's not the same. And so what Ryan Coogler is doing here is amazing. Also, Ludwig Göransson, Ryan Coogler's music guy, he may end up being the Hans Zimmer of this era of the 2020s. The way that John Williams owned, 30 years of pop cultural music space, and Hans Zimmer owned probably 10 or 15 years of pop cultural music space. That might be what Ludwig Göransson does going forward, because that man is oops all bangers, and it's different than anything that has come before it. So big props to him. I also got the name of the cinematographer as well, and she's an Asian lady, but she shoots black people like she loves black people. Like I said earlier, all around impressive. Once again, I can't say enough good things about this movie. I was blown away by this experience, and I don't understand anybody who was not blown away by this experience unless you just hate to see black people on screen. Directly, I am addressing that. If you have a problem seeing others on screen because you can't empathize, then that's probably your issue with this movie. Otherwise, tremendous. Kudos. And I think that is everything that I want to say about Sinners. There's so much more to be said because the movie has layers and so much depth. I haven't even talked about the vampires, which are this central antagonist of the movie. The vampire, as an Irish person, like an Irish person from before the English invaded his country, has beef with white culture too, but he's still white. So even though he wants to be an ally, he wants to be an ally in the specific way where he is the white savior. Like, he's invading this space, he's taking on this culture of his own, and he becomes the white savior even as the enemy. He has empathy for these black folks, but not so much empathy that he won't steal what they have for his own means, because the vampire wants to take the gift, because when the vampire turns people into vampires, he becomes basically the hive center. He's the queen of the Borg. He knows what they think and he takes on their abilities. And the ability of musical storytelling, if you have a transcendent ability of that, it crosses time, and he wants to commune with the spirits of old, of his people. He doesn't have the talent to do that. Sammy does, and he wants that talent. And the thing that stands between him and Sammy, well, are the immediate crew of people. This story is told with charm and humor and visceral badassery. Smoke and Stack are both badasses, and they get to be badasses. I don't have enough good things to say about this movie. I haven't seen it twice. It's on the list. I'm waiting for my girlfriend to be ready to see it with me, but I will definitely see it again. I've heard comparisons of From Dusk Till Dawn. I think From Dusk Till Dawn is an excellent movie, and it's a classic in the pantheon of genre pictures. But From Dusk Till Dawn is an appetizer as compared to the sumptuous meal that Sinners is. I don't want to say much more about this. I think you should go have this experience yourself. Yeah, you should just go see it. Just go see it. Be wild, be amazed. This is an immediate physical media buy for me, and I don't buy physical media anymore. Sinners. Definitely check it out. Best movie of the year so far. And I think that's the episode. As always, thanks for listening. If you would like to have a conversation with me about the things that I am having a conversation with you about, I guess I'm just pontificating at this point, but we can turn it into a conversation on Threads, on Blue Sky, on Instagram. I'm on all of those things as Johnathanblade. Maybe I'll start another channel as the Elder Blerd. We'll see. Probably not anytime in the near future. So catch me as Johnathanblade, that's John, on all the things, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for listening.